our rocket launches right when we run the game, and basically by the time we can actually see it, it's about halfway up the screen. So we're going to want to add a button and get some sort of user input in order to launch the rocket. And we'll also be learning about signals. So let's create a new node here. And we're going to create a button. And there's different kinds that you can create. There's a basic button and a bunch of other ones like checkbox, check button. There's a lot here. Option menu button. We're going to choose the texture button. And you can see this has absolutely nothing in it. You can't see this at all. However, we can give it a texture. If you come over here into its properties, and it's got a lot of them, you can click on textures, and here are the different textures you can give it. We're going to drag over the launch button into normal. And you can see that gives us a texture here for our button. But the problem is we're too small. Like, it's really small compared with the rocket ship over here. Let's drag it down into the corner, and we're going to change its scale. So come down to rect and scale. We'll do 2 and 2, just like we did with the ship. And you can stick it somewhere here in the corner. You might want to add snap, and to do that, we'll come up to this. We'll do use pixel snap. I like to turn off smart snapping, as I don't really like any of these. And then, well, once we have pixel snapping, we probably don't need to do much more. We'll just keep pixel snap on like that. Okay, so now we have a button. We can actually press it, but it doesn't do anything. And so we want to make sure that it does something when we press it. In Godot, you have signals, and a signal is a way for one node to talk to another node. And like I said in the previous video, generally you call down and signal up. And we want to tell the world node when to launch the rocket, when it should call the play animation inside of our animation player. So in order to do that, in order to talk with the world node, we'll want to create a signal that tells it how to do that. Let's click this to get rid of our animation player. Click on your texture button, and we're actually going to rename this, so double click on it. Launch button. We'll call it the launch button. Oops, I got our animation up again. Then come over here, and instead of having inspector right here, we're going to click on node. And this has two different kind of tabs, sub-tabs here. And the one that's important to us is signals. And there's different signals that we can use here. We're going to want the pressed signal. This is a signal when the button has been pressed. And all of this functionality is just built into the button node. We don't have to write code that can detect when the mouse is over it and when the mouse has clicked it or anything like that. All of that functionality is already inside of the button node. And that's the benefit of having a whole bunch of different nodes that you can use for specific situations that come up, that are common in games, right? It's really common to have a button for you to press. So we can double click on the press signal, and that will try and connect it to something. And it's like, what should we connect to? Tell me what to connect to. Well, we want to connect it to the world, right? Because we want to talk with the world. We want to tell it when we've been clicked on. And down here, we have to tell it what to do when we've been clicked on. So in order to do that, we need to make a function. So it's going to make a method inside of the node, and you'll want to make sure that this is checked on right here. Make function, and it's on launch button press. This will be the name of the function, and I recommend leaving it the way that it's named, because Godot has a method for how they name it, and I like the convention they use. So we're going to leave it the way that it's named and just press connect. Now we get a new function inside of our world.gd that Godot has made for us. And this function will be called when the launch button has been pressed. We also get this little icon right here indicating that there's a signal on this button that is attached to another node in the scene. So let's grab our animation player.playLaunch. We're going to copy this and put it right here. And then we can get rid of our ready function. So now it will play the launch animation once the launch button has been pressed. We can run the game. And you can see our animation hasn't played. If we press the launch button, it plays and our ship launches. So there you go. They're the very basics of accessing different nodes inside of Godot. And these are generally the methods that you'll use when you have a static scene, meaning the button's always going to be there, the rocket ship's always going to be there, the animation player's always going to be there. So when they're static like that inside of this scene, then you know you can get access to them in this way. So use onReadyVar with a $sign like this to get access to a child or grandchild, and use a signal to get access to something above you, a parent or a grandparent. And so call down, signal up. And that's the very basics. Now, the last thing we're going to do, and this isn't important, but it's going to bother some of you. Currently, our game isn't actually 1 bit. There's gray back here in the background. We need to make sure that this game is true 1 bit. There's only black and white. So we're going to come to our node here. We're going to add a new scene, a new node on the world node. And there's one called a color rect right here. We'll select that. We'll drag and drop it up here at the very top. That will make it drawn under our other items. If you select layout here, we can do full rect. That will just make it take up the entire screen. And then we can click on the inspector and click on color rect, and you can see we can choose a color. We'll choose black. And there we go. Our game is now fully 1 bit, and we can launch our rocket. Thank you so much for watching this section. I hope you enjoyed this section and learned a lot from it. I'm excited to start the next one, and I will see you then.